Say the planet, we gon' say the planet, everybody.
Hi.
Oi, pessoal.
Hola. Hello.
Hello.
Hi everyone.
Hola, from Fiji.
Hola a todos los que participan en la Cumbre Mundial de la Juventud de la UICN.
We gon' say the planet, everybody looking at us like we from another planet. Oh, say the planet, we gon' say the planet, everybody looking at us like we from another planet. Say the planet, we gon' say the planet, everybody looking at us like we from another planet. Say the planet, we gon' say the planet, everybody.
Salut, je m'appelle Nancy Chipuka.
I'm Tamara Speha.
I'm American from India.
I am Amanda Vilches.
Eu sou Yuri.
Jean Atishalim Terrania.
Kalia Frederick.
Alex Basaraba.
Eduardo Chanki.
Diana Gavlitska.
I am called Foba Sandra.
Solomon family.
Say the planet, we gon' say the planet, everybody looking at us like we from another planet. Say the planet, we gon' say the planet, everybody looking at us like we from another planet. Say the planet, we gon' say the planet, everybody looking at us like we from another planet. Say the planet, we gon' say the planet.
Hello everyone, Namaste. Now with all the problems that we face in the world today, especially all the environmental issues, I believe that the biggest issue we actually face is the constant thought that we have that somebody else will make a difference. We're always waiting for other people to make a difference, for politicians, for governments, for NGOs, for corporations to make a difference, when the truth is that all that we need is behavioral change. We need to empower ourselves to believe that we can bring about massive change by just bringing about small incremental changes within our own lives.
With young people comprising more than half of the global population.
Never in humanity's story has our collective actions meant so much.
Young people all over the world
to show the positive impact,
to come together and share best practices,
crear diálogos entre nosotros que nos ayuden a fortalecer,
and we bring hope.
Plant your dreams in the soil and water them with love. Living in harmony, it's only natural. What an amazing gift this is, to be conscious and choose to do what's right.
We have to put young people at the center of the conversations right now. I hope this Global Youth Summit provides an opportunity for much more of that, for all of you to engage, connect, ask questions, challenge traditional thinking, and suggest alternative solutions.
My hope is that young people all around the world are not only empowered to step into these positions of decision-making and leadership, but that current leadership integrate those voices in and value them and regard them as just as important and just as valid as their own.
Chose que l'année dernière nous a appris, c'est à quel point nous sommes connectés en tant que planète et en tant que personne. Mais nous savons aussi que l'interdépendance n'est pas synonyme d'équivalence. Nous ne vivons pas tous notre terre commune de la même manière. And so yes, one nature, one future, but many voices. The You Speak Labs are a place for those many voices to be heard. Ven a compartir tus ideas sobre la emergencia climática, la justicia de los pueblos indígenas, la equidad de género, el racismo ambiental, la soberanía alimentaria, los empleos verdes y mucho más.
Join us as we showcase that our planet's youth are as diverse as its ecosystems, and that we want to protect the incredible biodiversity found in this one nature, so we can truly share one future.
Desde la Amazonía profunda, el grito de la juventud, por nuestra vida, por nuestro planeta.
La tierra tiene fiebre, las aguas que se pierden, los bosques lloran sangre sin que nada los detenga. Se va perdiendo esa hermosa luz que tiene la selva. No tenemos dos planetas que tengan compasión. Si no ponemos un alto habrá mucha muerte y destrucción. Y no sé qué pasa.
Through the IUCN Global Youth Summit, I look forward to learning about what other activities are people doing from across the globe. What can we replicate? What can we improve on?
Chance of meeting people and hearing like stories and projects around the world of individuals who all have the same goal.
作为来自世界各地关注气候变化的青年人，我们呼吁在多边决策中进一步纳入青年人的观点，提高气候行动中的青年参与度。
During the summit, I hope to learn about all the amazing things that are happening around the world and connect to people that are as motivated and empowered as I am.
For every two breaths you take, one of them comes from the ocean.
My name is Kinan Tegan, a 16-year-old film.
I think as young people, we need to step out of our comfort zones and take that extra step and walk that extra mile to get the future we want. We can't just blame others anymore. We need to ask ourselves, what have I done to help achieve a sustainable world?
Santo. Baby, come make I play you like Awaya. You no be talk, no be joke, no be cinema. Hey, original lily. Original lily. I'ma make you follow for road. Come on to your load. And not to your back. Make it time and lose track. I'ma make you follow for road. Come on to your load.
We welcome you to this very first IUCN Global Youth Summit.
IUCN's 6 commission chairs, with our 19,000 passionate volunteers worldwide, are with you. We are listening. We believe that together there is nothing we cannot achieve if we trust, believe, and focus on action.
Étant le plus grand réseau environnemental au monde, l'IUCN rassemble 1400 membres, dont des organisations gouvernementales, non gouvernementales et des organisations de peuples autochtones qui souhaitent travailler avec vous, vous entendre et vous donner le pouvoir.
En tant que présidente du comité national qui accueillera le prochain congrès mondial de la nature, nous vous souhaitons la bienvenue et nous vous remercions de votre participation et de votre enthousiasme.
Las voces de los jóvenes, nuestras voces, son el futuro. De parte de todos los que trabajamos en la Secretaría de la UICN, los invitamos a crear ese futuro juntos en la primera Cumbre Mundial de la Juventud. Bienvenidos.
I believe.
I believe.
I firmly believe.
I believe in one nature.
One nature.
In one nature.
One nature.
One nature.
One nature. One future.
Take your time and lose track. I'ma make you follow for road. Come on to your load. And not to your back. Take time and lose track. African woman, she go dance the fire dance. African woman.
All righty, yo, what's up, guys? So we're here, I am A.Y. Young, founder of the Battery Tour and one of the 17 United Nations Young Leaders for the SDGs. Now, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm obviously a Boy Scout, an Eagle Scout, but I'm a young person who truly believes that we have one nature and one future. So let me just take a minute real quick, guys. Let's make sure everyone can hear me before we get started. So check the bottom right corner of your screen, find the globe, and select the language that you want to listen in on. Now, if you need any help, drop your comments in our Zoom chat, all right? So that's the bottom right corner. Make sure that you guys, find the globe and select the language that you want to listen in on so everyone can hear me. All right, and make sure you check that comment in Zoom chat for extra help. All right, so guys, I am super excited about this Global Youth Summit, man. Like this is crazy. Like, do you realize how monumental this event is? Now, the summit it's a new, innovative way for all of us to come together to exchange ideas, to share resources, and honestly, ultimately contribute to the world and take an action, make real change. Now, we are over 13,000 people participating in this summit, repping over 170 countries. Woo! Thumbs up on that. That's so many people. Yo, see, we've literally changed the way that we can connect, engage, and inspire people to take action. We've opened up a whole new way for the youth of this world to engage. So, really quick, to get a little serious, we know how important it is to share our voices, and we recognize that our voices are unique, dynamic, and diverse. So here's the deal. Let's be all sure that we hold this space for our differences. And by that, I mean everyone has the right to be here, to share their own views and voices. But at the same time, guys, we want to be super responsible and make sure that everyone feels safe and respected. So for anyone out there, at any time, if you do not feel safe, respected, right? And if you come across anything inappropriate, please drop us a message in the chat box. The chat box also has those details now, because we are committed to being a harassment-free event. All right, so we want everyone to feel safe and good. So anyway, back to it, guys. This amazing summit. Shout out to all of the people in India. Yo, we got a lot of participants in Mexico, Peru, all those joining us from America, I'm from North America, and Europe. Hello to our Dutch, Nigerian, and Pacific Island friends, and greetings to our Chinese participants, everyone from Canada, to our French friends. Hello, 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 and welcome to this global summit, guys. So no matter where you're at in the world, welcome. This is for us. This is for all of us. Together, we're facing global challenges, and together we can overcome obstacles. Now, this summit is a chance to get to know each other, to understand each other's, perspectives, spend time together. We're all here because we all believe in one nature and one future, right? So we're all here because we know that the path to a sustainable tomorrow, it's going to require empowering young people. It's going to require all of us, right? So we're supported. So anyway, thank you to the welcoming messages from all of the IUCN patron, well, specifically the IUCN patron of nature, Laura Seidel, and the Danish minister shared yesterday. We would not be here if it wasn't for IUCN. So right now, I want to share a message from the IUCN president to welcome all of us to this first ever IUCN Global Youth Summit, guys. Roll it.
Dear youth leaders, young friends, and all participants, I'm proud to announce the official opening of the Global Youth Summit. I thank you all for your participation and your contributions to IUCN. We believe you young people are today's pioneers and will be tomorrow's leaders. The youth are the most active and energetic, and the least conservative in mind. This is precisely the strength and the motivation that IUCN urgently needs to carry forward changes and reforms in order to better meet the newly emerging challenges of this world. Dear colleagues, IUCN is committed to actions, and your consensus recommendations sure lead to actions. I'm eager to hear the results of the Global Youth Summit when we gathered in Marseille WCC Congress in September. I hope you will all join us there, either in person or by remote connections. Dear young friends, our future lies on your hands. I wish you have a rich and fruitful conferences. Thank you for your attention.
Oh, you guys could so totally not hear me. I was just like talking and you couldn't hear. Oh, shoot. Oh, no. Well, what I was saying was, I had to switch up the background, because I got all the battery tour stuff from the battery tour because I do this renewable energy power concert. And yeah, so I thought you'd be cool to see the real life me, instead of a virtual. Anyway, President, that was a message, bro. What's up? I see you. That's awesome. Yo, guys, we have so much planned over the next 10 days. So let me give you like a quick rundown of how to get like the most out of your GYS experience. Now, first, we have 3 incredible intergenerational dialogues taking place. Now, up next, join us for the super year for nature and beyond. Now, then on April the 9th, we have an amazing group to address moving from token voices to headed partners. Now, our third and final dialogue is on April 14th, supporting and valuing the voice of Indigenous peoples. This will be at 1 p.m. UTC. To join us, make sure you're logged in to Hoover, and then the links will be in the agenda. Now, make sure you're on time because it will fill up and we have limited capacity because there's like 13,000 people that are in this thing right now and they enjoy it. And if you have any questions, you have some really great people on staff to answer your questions and to repeat these things. Second, we also have over 60, that's right, 60 youth-led workshops taking place. Now, this is where we can all share skills, experience, and capacity, proving that we have, so many amazing right now, all the workshops track under the themes of climate change. Okay, so freshwater and marine, rights and governance, people and nature, and tech and innovation. Now, third, one of the best parts, honestly, of this summit is that we'll leave with like concrete, outcomes, actual, really concrete things. So this is kind of like a new way to participate, to produce outcomes with such inclusivity. So please join hashtag Youth Speak Labs throughout the summit to truly add your voice, your thoughts to the mix. This is where we really need to bring our diversity together so we can move forward, all right? We're shaping our message to the world. All right, guys, so my favorite part of the summit is the networking sessions. This is a chance like for real talk, right? These are small groups set up for you to be able to directly talk to people around the world, working across the spectrum of conversation. These are small sessions. So again, please show up on time if you want to get in. I think that's the main thing, is just make sure you show up on time. There's a lot of people. We want you guys to be in all these different things, right? Now, I know this is a whole lot that we're covering, but don't worry, because we've got you covered. We have to make sure that we take good care of our bodies and our minds so we can do this work. So we set up a series of body awareness. Oh shoot, is there any dancing going on? I don't know. Body awareness workshops to take a time, to breathe, to stretch, to make sure, because we're going to be on these, calls a lot. So stretch a little bit, get your body, feeling good so we can change the world together, guys. Now, over the weekend from April 9 through 11, we also have the GYS Film Fest. So the links to access the private playlist, they go live about April 9th. So make sure that you watch the agenda We have over about 100 videos and films and a collection of shout outs to share. Over the weekend, you can kind of like, unwind and stay and get inspired. So one of the beautiful things I love about this summit is that like while we're here to focus on empowering and engaging young people, we have invited all generations, all ages, all demographics to be a part of this. So let's jump in, let's plug in. Let's bring out the one and only, guys. Make some noise if you're at your
Alors,
house.
s'il vous plaît, veuillez accueillir
¿Quién está entrando?
notre invité.
Let's bring out Gail to remind us how to select the language channels.
D'abord, je vais demander
Thanks,
à Gaël
and hi everybody. Here is Gail from France and
de nous
Ecuador, and
expliquer
we are here with Sandra, Diego, Mirna, and
l'interprétation.
Carmen to
Je suis
interpret
ici avec
from and
Diego,
to
Sandra
French
et
and
Mirna et
Spanish.
Carmen pour faire l'interprétation de l'anglais vers le français et l'espagnol. Désolée, l'intervenante a été mise en sourdine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I will go back to the explanation. Sorry for the little issue. So in order to access the interpretation, please click on the globe at the bottom right
Por
of your
favor, para
screen
entrar
and
a la
select the language in
interpretación,
which you wish to listen to the meeting. When French and Spanish speakers are speaking, please choose the English channel to listen to the translation in English. If you have any problem with interpretation, please let us know in the chat. Pour l'interprétation, veuillez cliquer sur le petit globe en bas à droite de votre écran et sélectionner la langue dans laquelle vous souhaitez écouter la réunion. N'hésitez pas à intervenir en français. Des traducteurs sont prêts à traduire vos interventions en français vers l'anglais et l'espagnol. Si vous avez un problème avec l'interprétation, veuillez nous le faire savoir dans le chat. Para la interpretación, por favor haga clic en el pequeño globo en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y seleccione el idioma en el que desea escuchar la reunión. No dude en intervenir en español si lo desea. Hay intérpretes que están listos para traducir sus intervenciones hacia el francés y el inglés. Si tiene algún problema con la interpretación, por favor háganoslo saber en el chat. Gracias, buena reunión. So you can continue, I.
I'm back, but I don't think I should be. I am currently drinking water from my reusable water bottle. Guys, this is the sound. Should be dialogue. I don't know camera right now. The you envoy my people. What's up, girl? So many. Hot moving around.
Okay, thank you so much, AJ, for that. And hello to everyone. It's amazing to be here today and with all these amazing people. It's really like giving me goosebumps right now. It is so monumental that while we are facing this global crisis, we have actually adapted, and the world is showing us that there is potential to make the necessary changes needed so that we can live in harmony with nature. We are all coming here together virtually for this IUCN Global Youth Summit with over 1,300 people registered from all over the world. This is just like, beyond anybody's expectation to think of so many young people all coming together and showing us that it is possible to adapt. And we can all start taking the necessary changes and push for the fundamental change needed for us to live in this one and only planet that we have, and live in a way that we can be in harmony with it. So today, we are coming together under a very different circumstances. And we might not have come together this way if not for that. But we are here today. And together, we have an incredible group of people talking to you today. And they are going to be talking to you about something that is meaningful and critical for our shared future, which is engaging youth effectively. But before I jump into the dialogue, I just wanted to remind all our lovely speakers here that they should keep themselves muted until they have to respond so that we can hear everybody clearly. So thank you so much for that. And I would like to also invite them to unmute when they ask the question. So today I would start off by introducing myself and all the amazing speakers here. And to introduce them, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to talk about who they are, but at the same time, tell you something that excites them or gives them butterflies in their tummy when they think about nature or about working with youth. So let me start off. Hi, everyone. I'm Shweta Sotrabasham, and I'm the Global South focal point for the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. And to me, the smell of the soil after the first rain, and in Assam, when I used to do my master's, to be woken up to the song of the hula gibbons, the thought of these two things always gives me butterflies. So that's from me. And now going to the next speaker, I would like to welcome one of the world's leaders in engaging youth today, Jayatma Vikramanayaka, who's the UN Youth Envoy from Sri Lanka. It is lovely to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us today. Jayatma says that what excites her is to see how young people are leading the way and encouraging the world to stop being exploitative, extractive, and to even respect indigenous people and the ways they are appreciating nature and the way young people and the youth put the planet first. These are things that give her butterflies. We also have from IUCN, Sonia Pina, who's the head of the Global Policy Unit, and bringing us a perspective of effective youth engagement from Zambia. We are welcoming the UNICEF Ambassador, Queen's Young Leaders Awardee, and currently working with the UN SDSN Youth, Brighton Koma. Thank you, Brighton, for being here. It's also a pleasure for me to welcome Ron Holman, who is the President and CEO of Parks Canada and one of the main sponsors for the Global Youth Summit. He says that what excites him about youth is the inspiration and optimism that youth engagement creates. He says that young people know so much about conservation and climate change, and they care so much about it and are ready to take action and lead the way in finding solutions. And that gives him butterflies. Joining us from Qatar, we are lucky to have the founder of the Arab Youth Climate Movement in Qatar, Nasheed Shafi. Hi, Nasheed. Nice to have you here. Nasheed says that to him, when he hears the word nature, it means life to him. And life, according to him, is everywhere. It's not just in postcards or panoramas of untouched wilderness or charismatic iconic species, but everywhere. And keeping the dialogue connected to what's happening with the world of biodiversity, we have not one, but two amazing people coming from the CBD Secretariat. We have the Deputy Executive Secretary, David Cooper, and we have Chantal, who is the youth focal point for the CBD, and she works in stakeholder engagement. So for David, many things about nature give him butterflies, but one thing that always sticks out for him is hearing and seeing the whales surfacing at the Gulf of St. Lawrence. And that experience apparently makes him spontaneously feel relaxing and super excited. I never knew that about you, David, and that's really cool to hear about. And Chantal has something very different. She says that winters give her butterflies because when she thinks about all the years she's been in Canada winters, it always fascinates her to see that nature can go into sleep for so many months and then wake up in spring full of life and energy. With all these amazing speakers and all these amazing things that they care about with youth and nature, I'm also going to introduce you guys to the last panelist we have with us, but never the least, we have someone who's going to give you a view of the world of the private sector. We had Adrian Geiger, who's from the group sustainability, who's the group sustainability officer of Occitan. And according to him, nature is the expression of living. As human beings, we are a part of it. Our destiny is to be in symbiosis with nature. And with this beautiful quote of being in symbiosis with nature, I would like to start off our amazing panel today and start with our first round. So for this first round, we were thinking, let's do something different. Rather than having a round of presentations, we thought, let's find a way to connect with us, connect with each other, look at how we are diverse, but at the same time, how we can learn from each other and grow together. And for that, for our first round, let's think about ourselves being in a virtual roundtable. And what we are doing here is we're going to answer the question of what we feel is the essential must-have ingredient when we are planning for successful youth engagement. Now, this question is to all our panelists, but also to the thousands of young people who are listening to us right now. So please join us by clicking the link provided to you in the chat below and tell us that one ingredient, one must-have ingredient you think is needed for us to have successful youth engagement. Okay, now going forward, I'm going to open the floor to all our amazing panelists. And at the end of our roundtable discussion, we are going to show the word cloud that all of you are going to create and see what you have to say about it. So to get this panel started, I can go first. To me, co-designing and co-leading any youth engagement initiative with young people is the key ingredient. To successfully engage young people, we need to be actively involved in designing the process, planning it, and implementing the project or the activity, but you have to do it with youth. We don't like to be tokenized and we want to be taken seriously. And rather than thinking about us as people you need to educate, or the previous generations need to educate, we want to be considered as equals when making decisions, and we want to make decisions with you. So for me, this is like the oil or the heat or the water that you really need to cook all the ingredients. So with mine, I would like to then ask Ron to tell us what's your must-have ingredient for successful youth engagement.
Okay, thanks. Well, I saw it flash up. Somebody typed already, communication. And you know, often we talk to youth rather than with youth, as if, as you said, as if we're educating them, but really we can learn a lot from them. Think about the first time you remember experiencing nature, you know, in a park, in the forest, wherever, and all that you felt about that and the connection that you had to that. If we can harness some of that enthusiasm and some of that passion from youth by hearing from them, by hearing their ideas, by removing barriers to access, barriers to communication in ways such as this summit, and then really hear them and empower them to take action and let them be the leaders that they want to be, I think that's a huge step forward.
Oh, that's amazing. Let them be the leaders they want to be. And that is a really great way to take it to our next speaker. Brighton, what's your answer?
Thank you so much. I think first of all, it's critical to realize that there's nothing for young people without young people. And in this decade of action, where we're working on the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to realize that there are three enemies that we should eliminate. I think cynicism when working with young people, judgment when working with young people, are things that should be eliminated. And above all, co-creation of solutions is the mother body that can help us achieve whatever we want to achieve with the youth.
Thank you for that, Bright. Jayatama, what about you?
Thanks, Sweta. I think representation is key. When we refer to young people or youth, we automatically think that they're a homogeneous group, but they're not. They are really a microcosm of society. They are very heterogeneous. And we need to engage young people in all their diversity. We need young women and girls at the table, young people of color, young LGBTIQ people, young indigenous people, young people of all political views, young people of all social statuses, economic classes, rural young people, urban young people. So when we talk about young people, without giving sort of say one young person 1 minute to represent all young people at important discussions, we should open up more spaces like this youth summit today so that every young person can speak to themselves and their own lived realities.
Oh, awesome. That was lovely. David, what is your ingredient?
So building on what others have said, I agree very much with what's gone before. Space for self-organization, giving youth the opportunity also to challenge, well, in the CBD process, to challenge the governments, to challenge the other participants. And also that means not just on, in a meeting that is at the end of a process, but throughout that process and from the beginning, through the consultations, through the technical discussions. Again, in the CBD context, it means trying to encourage engagement at the national level before we get to the international meetings as well.
Oh, thank you for that, David. Adrian?
Well, I guess I have a different point of view coming from the private sector. On my side, I will say the ingredient is concrete action. We need to show the younger generation that it's no marketing bullshit. We are actually walking the talk and we believe in what we're saying. And at L'Occitane, this is what we're trying to do. For instance, we have this year contributed to protect 1,000 species and varieties of plants through different programs in Burkina Faso and south of France. And also with the OP2B business coalition gathering almost 30 companies. We are scaling up regenerative agriculture to fight against climate change, to fight deforestation, and to support farmers' livelihood. Voilà.
Thanks, Adrian. I think Walk the Talk is a great one. Sonia?
Thank you, Sweta. Well, for me, it's following on Adrian's comment just now. I think the ingredient should be a catalyzer for action and reaction. So take it as the baking powder in a cake, for instance. So without that ingredient, I see very difficult for youth to engage fully in anything. If you don't see yourself in it, if you don't understand why, if you don't have a say or a sense of where that engagement is going, I see it very difficult. So that catalyzer, that baking powder for me is essential.
Thank you for taking the narrative further. I love the baking powder and catalyzer concept that you added in. Now I think it's great to let's see what other ingredients our participants have added to the word cloud that we can actually look at and maybe even incorporate in the work we are doing. Wow, okay. So there are quite a few interesting things that I can see have come up here. Collaboration, communication, also key things that our panelists have mentioned, education, empowerment, inclusion, empathy is a new one. I love the rest. I love respect, cooperation, engagement, flexibility. There are quite a few. Transparency, listening to youth, creativity, participation, networks, teamwork. There are quite a really amazing number of things you guys are saying. And thank you for all the ingredients that you have added to what we already were talking about today. Definitely patience is another interesting one that I like. So thank you for all the people who have contributed to this. I see over 300 young people have answered this question. It's great. And I'm going to now take the panel to the next stage where actually we're going to start seeing how we're going to take some of these key elements or ingredients that all of you have talked about to make it into something, make it something that we can imbibe or, cook by ourselves. So before I go to that, to the next round, I'm going to request all the participants, if you have questions, to type your questions down in the Q&A box where you can ask your questions to the panelists. And if you're watching this live, please ensure that you put your comments in the Whova platform. So now, going to round 2, I think it's time we ask you guys to think about this and reflect on what everybody has said, the participants and the panelists, and think about what from that was said today can we take back home today, and how, and could incorporate into our work. What have we heard today that you think is tangible, inspiring, and can be anchored into your current work? And for this, I would like to start by asking Sonia this question.
Thank you. Well, I think I've heard a lot of things that I feel connected to in this just short space of time. But perhaps the one thing that I think comes out very strongly for me is just the issue of empathy and respect that came just now. And that ingredient to me, it's adding very well to the mix, just because, as you yourself said at the beginning, we don't want to be, we want to be listened to, we want to be respected, but don't take us for granted. And that part of the being connected with other, being listened to and respected so that you can start a dialogue is really a true part of engaging someone, and let alone youth, of course, in something that is meaningful and impactful. So if we're talking, as we're talking here today, about a super year for nature and advancing nature's causes and objectives and sustainability forward with youth, I think that perhaps that is something we have to be adding first to our long ingredients list: respect and empathy.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us now. Nishad, would you like to tell us what you think you can take back from what you heard today?
Well, I would echo on inclusion. That's something we faced being in the Arab world. So I probably would put up respect and inclusion, like Jeremiah was mentioning, that young people from all aspects of society, color, and sexual orientation or region of the world, no matter where you belong to, but that youth representation is not just a youth from a global north or a specific countries in the global south, but everybody from the global south and global north should be represented. So I would go with inclusion and respect as a great takeaway for representing many of them from the global south.
Thank you. Adrian?
Yeah, I will say also inclusion. I mean, we are talking about saving the world here, and this is a systematic issue. And if we don't hear the voices of everyone, and especially those who are not really heard, there is no way we can make this change. And it reminds me, for instance, what we're doing in Burkina Faso. By listening to the women who we're working with to collect the shea butter, we have changed the way we're producing the shea butter with them in order to respect the biodiversity there. So inclusion is such a strong word, I agree.
Yeah, I think we can already see like a trend coming in, how you guys are talking about certain values that are key ingredients: inclusion, respect, empathy. I think you guys are really touching on some key aspects right now. And definitely this dish does sound like something which is really a tasty one, if I might say. Jetwa, what do you think you could add here?
I would like to pick up on something that I think Brighton alluded to when in his presentation, which is the importance of creating safe spaces for young people. I think there's a lot of dialogue around, how great it is that young people are coming out and speaking about these issues and taking action, and a lot of sort of, applauding their activism. But when they are under attack for that activism, institutions often do not protect them or stand up behind them to protect them, right? We've seen this, for an example, happen during the Amazon fires. Some of the indigenous environmental defenders who were speaking up against what was going on at that time were sort of retaliated by state and non-state actors. Recently in India, we saw a 21-year-old climate activist being arrested for sharing a Google document regarding a protest, youth-led protest. And in my country, for an example, one of the young leaders spoke about deforestation that is currently happening at a very rapid pace. And the next day, the police was going into her house to sort of, intimidate her. And this type of retaliation, intimidation happens to young people, even to children who are speaking about these issues that are sometimes sort of seen as anti-government or are not welcomed in certain contexts. And I think as much as we ask young people to take action and be vocal and be bold, we as institutions need to stand behind them when they are being retaliated against.
Absolutely. And I think this is something we as young people are learning more and more, that we need to start talking to our community on how they can be safe and how they should engage in a safe way. So thank you so much for bringing that up and making this really current at the moment to the discussion we are having. David, do you have something you could add as well?
Really just emphasizing the importance of co-design, working together with youth organizations to work out the way we can facilitate, enable. We can't organize for youth, right? Youth must be self-organized, but how can we work together to provide the spaces that allow, as you've said, these very diverse voices to be voiced.
Thank you for that, David. Ron, do you have something that you think could be another take-home ingredient for you?
Sure, thanks. I'd like to go back to what Jay Ahmed said on the diversity of youth and that they're not homogenous, because it's so true. And it's key to understanding how to reach out and how to connect with many youth on their terms. For example, at Parks Canada, we have a variety of programs such as the Youth Ambassador Program, a Parks Life platform that allows youth to share their stories and experiences amongst themselves on their own terms. We have coloring books for little kids to explore. We have mood walks and all those sorts of things for kids who want to learn and experience about it. But we also try to keep diversity in mind in terms of how we provide volunteer and employment opportunities. For example, we hire racialized youth, Indigenous youth, groups from different equity-seeking communities, etc. And really, if we can remember the diversity of views that come from youth across the country and around the planet, we think we will get much better views, better decision-making, better outcomes, all to the good, and create pathways to nature for anyone who wants it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Brighton, what about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with what everybody has contributed so far. And it's also most important to recognize the fact that as we think about engaging young people, I think something that really comes to mind is authenticity. Authenticity in the approach we're engaging them. Authenticity in our intention of engaging young people. Because I think we are living in a world where there's too much tokenism, where young people are only being engaged for the sake of being engaged. So meaningful engagement is critical, and that's something I would like to highlight.
Thank you so much for that, Brighton. And I think you do hit on, again, another critical issue that we as young people face. And if I have to see what I would take back, it largely would be to, remind ourselves that we have to ensure that the authenticity, as you call it, the values with which, the intention with which we do a youth engagement is actually genuine. And we really do believe that they have a potential, and they're not just consumers, not just empty boxes that need to be filled, but actually people that have a lot of potential and are a generation that can lead. I think that is something that would be my take home from all that you guys are saying, is to find a way to have that genuine connection made with ensuring that we respect them, empathize with them, and even help them, show them a way to lead the way they want to lead. But I think clearly from all the feedback you guys are giving us, there is no real one-size-fits-all solution that works for everybody. And everything is context dependent, not just for youth engagement, but even in conservation. But what we have seen is that you guys are telling us is that there are some critical principles or best practices that we all should follow and are necessary for us to be able to engage and make decisions so that we can do it with the previous generations. Now, taking that forward, I would like to also share a little bit about how I came into being in the youth space, and how sadly what you guys are talking about is not something that is still very common, and most of the values and principles you are talking about are still not recognized fully, and people are continue to tokenize us and just use include youth as a consumer, or as a potential group of people that need to be engaged because of their numbers, but not really meaningfully engaging us. And this was something that even I remember when I joined the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, how we struggled to make country delegates really understand why they should engage youth. And we did what Brighton was talking about, where we actually showed them that we have something valuable to contribute. And we went on and created a youth guidebook to the CBD process. And this was called the CBD in a nutshell. And this was such an incredible book. It turned into such an incredible, valuable source for not just civil society, but also to government officials, that it started paving the way to really explain to our community that young people are a valuable, can have valuable contributions and are a powerful stakeholder that they need to engage. We also went on to actually help to create empower youth and capacity build them so that they can create around 44 national and regional chapters across the globe and lead projects by themselves and lead activities where they can support the governments to actually create implementation on the CBD targets that need to be done, so that they could show the governments that they can actually be allies, but at the same time, we are a generation that can take the lead. So with all this happening in our community, this was where we were able to slowly trigger over a few years. We were able to transform from moving towards and inspiring young people, thousands of young people actually, to come together and actively engage for biodiversity. But when I say that they all came together and they were engaging for biodiversity, it did not happen because of anything external, but literally from that passion that young people had within them. And it was because of the values that we held dear as a community at Gibbon, where we ensure that every time young people are engaged, we need to engage them meaningfully and effectively. And we wanted this to become a standard, which is not yet there today. And this is one of the main reasons I think we as young people are pushing for intergenerational equity, which is the concept of fairness and justice between and within generations, as one of the 12 key priorities under the Youth Manifesto for Nature. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to also continue to push for this at all the levels and all the processes that we can, along with all the other youth groups and constituencies and youth-led organizations that are supporting this manifesto and the movement behind it. But while I share with you these amazing thoughts from mine and my personal experience, I also want to take this opportunity to ask Brighton, you being such an amazing mobilizer, I would really like to hear your experience of what is a good example of successful youth engagement according to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate, and I would like to really paint a picture of what really inspired my intention to get into the youth movement space. So I was raised in a very small town on the copper mining town of Kitwe in the northern part of Zambia. So it was a very small community of about 500,000 people, no piped water, no tarred roads. There were days where I would be walking to school during the rainy season and the bridge which connected my house and the school was washed away by the rains. There were days when the area experienced droughts and young people like myself and girls were disproportionately affected by walking extra miles to draw water. So seeing all these challenges inspired me to realize that radio is the most powerful medium of communication in my community. If I wanted to go to school, I would turn the radio on, wait for the announcer to say, it's now 10 o'clock, and I would rush to the bathroom and get ready. So I realized that why not use the most inexpensive, fun, and available medium of communication to engage people in my community by raising awareness, educating them, but also calling truth to power. So using radio, I mean, reaching 2 million weekly listeners and creating a model that ended up inspiring so many young people made me pick up two things. I think number one, how can we as young people find most inexpensive, accessible, easy to use, and fun channels and approaches to reach our specific targets. But also the responsiveness of the radio station to give me radio airtime at the age of 14, to me, symbolized meaningful youth engagement. They did not ask for any specific training. They trained me with the right skills to be able to come up with models that would inspire the community. So it's a two-way thing, the responsiveness of institutions to accommodate young people without judging them, give them a platform, give them skills if you see they are lacking in specific skills, and allow them to express whatever they feel is relevant for themselves based on their experiences. So when I look at my past and now leading the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network youth programs here in New York City, I realized that the world is like a classroom. There's always going to be specific lessons that we can learn wherever we are. But institutions are also critical in this space to create spaces where young people can thrive and grow in an environment where they are not judged, in an environment where they are supported, in an environment where fundamental human rights are respected for every young person, irrespective of where they are. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bright. Your solution of how you figured out a way really made me remember how I did it when I was a child. And I remember when I was 18 and I just wanted to tell the world that, you know, there's climate change happening and we need to do something about it. And I thought, let me just talk to the people. And I just took all opportunities possible to just talk to them, even talking to people who came out from blood donation camps because I thought they'll be tired and they'll have to listen to me. Or like when they were on a train and then I was like, everybody's just sitting in a train. Why don't I use this opportunity to talk to everyone on the train? And I just went and spoke to everybody on it. And it just reminds me of, you know, how we as young people can really think of those, you know, solutions that do not need much energy, but just our passion and our will to do it. So thank you so much for all that great example that you shared with us today. I would like to move on now to Sonia and actually, you know, reflect on, you know, with Sonia about how COVID has brought more and more people into virtual spaces and how, you know, critical conversations right now, it is very important to have communication and critical communication to ensure that we have effective program development. So as, you know, IUCN and the reach and the commitment you have for youth engagement, how do you see the work that Brighton is doing and the inspiration that he provides as an opportunity to further engage young people in the work of IUCN? Maybe even you could shine a little bit of light on how you see this moving forward with policy advocacy and youth engagement.
Super. Okay, well, for me, young people's engagement results from also being well equipped to be part of the discussions, to participate in debates, to engage fully into conversations that perhaps are not ready-made for all of us at one point in time. And that engagement also comes from, and that well-equipped comes from having the right information at your hand, at your disposal. And the knowledge, having access to that relevant information and be able to participate then and turn that into, you know, decisions and conversations. And I find that that information sharing is not always given to all of us, and it's perhaps not well packaged in one way or another. So in policy settings, for instance, if you're about to participate in a decision-making process, you need access to that relevant knowledge and information that can give you then the tools to engage fully, participate, turn that into recommendations that are based on that information and that are targeted to a certain audience. So following from what Brighton was just saying, I think here we have to be very innovative and creative in the way that we deliver that information, present that information, especially to youth. And I would say that in general, also for many other audiences, it doesn't come out easily presented or accessible when we talk about very scientific, technical information that then informs and must be there to inform decision-making processes and policy relevant decisions ultimately. But that packaging it's essential, I think, in the way that it's presented, that information, that knowledge. So to me, in the global policy unit and throughout the 18 plus years that I've been working in IUCNs in that setting, one thing that I've learned is that you have to, first of all, adapt to the context, as you were saying before, but also to mold the information and present it in a way that it's appealing to whoever you're talking to. So that it's not one size fits all. It doesn't work for everyone to convey the information in the same way or paint it in the same format. It doesn't convey the same message. So for policy decision making, I think it's essential that we think about who are we talking to? How can we make this person or individual or group of people have butterflies when they hear this information, react in a way that makes them trigger action? And so a big part of that learning for me has been, how do I translate what I get from all the experts and the unbelievable experts that are all over the world in their own right, in universities, academicians, you name it, in IUCN's commissions. There is an enormous amount of information and data out there, but that it's not being harnessed and presented and gathered in a way that triggers the action that we need. And for youth, I think that it's essential that, again, we are innovative, creative, that we find the right spaces, the right tools to convey those messages. In the current setting, if you see what is happening right now, we're talking in a virtual space because of the pandemic and everything that has generated that health crisis, together with a number of other crises, had led us to rethink the way that we work, that we consume, that we engage with others, that we engage with nature. So I think that reshuffling a lot of that, impinging a lot of creativity in the way that we convey, communicate, innovate, would make a long way. And for me, especially sitting in a policy setting where sometimes people think it's very dry, very boring, ultimately, that creativity, that innovation needs to come from youth, and that has to convey a different sort of message. That message of you can do it, you can have it your way, but you have to be well equipped to do that.
Absolutely. And thank you for, putting that context of how you see, the work being implemented and how, the complexity of policy and understanding policy can really be something that can be critical to really make change happen. So that was quite a helpful insight into that world for us as well. I would like to now ask Nishad, you having such an amazing example of how you have done youth engagement under the Arab Youth Climate Movement in Qatar. Could you tell us, how you would take Brighton's example and see how that would really be something like that would be conducted in your region? Maybe like even thinking about like the initiatives and different tools that you would need and you use right now to actually target active youth groups in Qatar, and how do you get them mobilized?
Well, thank you. Yeah, Brighton gave a good example how you mobilize young people, and again, the contexts differ from a region to countries. We here had some experience where in the beginning in 2015, young people were in part of this whole climate conversation, either be it in the local conversation or at the international level. So how do we change? So we brought up many programs where we wanted to involve community, especially young people. Some of the programs like Ambassadors of Environment Qatar was one example which we started, where to bring more people into engaging locally, as well as like how Sonia mentioned, to equip with the knowledge, a lot of knowledge, what is necessity, what is applicable for Qatar or the Gulf or Arab countries in the Middle East. So that has to be empowered. It's not like being just an activist, you just have a drum, you don't sound anything. Because nowadays, when the government engages, they look into our aspects. They ask us, what are your key points you want to give us? So you need to be equipped with that knowledge, which is what Sonia was absolutely mentioning. Another thing what Branton mentioned, bringing young people together, because one person doesn't make a huge noise, but a number of young people together, well informed, make a huge difference. That's what happened. We started as a youth group back in 2015, and in 2018 or 19, I believe, before the COVID came in, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs invited our organization to the first UN Youth Summit as representing Qatar. And that was from nowhere to something different. So what we did in that 3 years was building that reputation that this is a young people who have the knowledge and who can work not only in youth group programs, but also policy level engagement. That's why we were also invited for the NDCs of Qatar's preparation. So lately we wanted to engage beyond young people. We went on to a new program called Eco Literacy for Imams. That's where we use the place of worship. Mostly there's a Muslim country here. We wanted to use the place of worship to engage to more people who come to a pious place like a mosque or the masjid we call here. What we do is to train the imams, who is the priest like you have in the church or the priest in the temple. They will be trained, but efficient templates where we use the religious context and also the scientific reports, how they are somewhere entangled together. It gives the same message that conservation is part of every religion. And we wanted to use the same thing and also give a very Islamic state here. We have most of the people going to the religious places. And this program is definitely going to help to reach out to beyond young people. So the idea is like, you work with the contest, whichever country you do. Like Burton mentioned, radio was something that was innovative there because that was available in most of the people's house. And that's how that was taken into consideration. Here, I think we have all the means of communication, but people are not engaging. So we have to bring ideas that engages young people. So right now we're also coming up with an app to measure your carbon footprint. These apps would give definitely how your individual footprint has to do with, given the fact, Qatar has one of the highest per capita carbon footprint in the world. So we wanted to showcase that young people or anybody in the community to know that you also play a huge role in this. It's not just young people, but we wanted to, engage that community as a large. Now, like in the Qatar, like environment is very keenly spoken, highest level of the government. They are inviting young people, not just token, but like Sonia mentioned, they just don't want you come and sit. They want us to give recommendations. They ask us to come up with a proposal. What do you want to come up with? So that gives us a lot of, way of engaging with the government. So recently we had an opportunity to sit with the COP26 president. He has the same thing. Like Nishad, we don't see many young people from Arab world discussing with government, unlike, in the global north. It's very accessible. Here we also, it doesn't work. We don't have much civil society space. But given that space, we used in a very, very approachable way where we are very good, closely working with the government at the same time, engaging the civil society at the same time. So the idea, the bottom line is this, like we came up with programs that are very specific to the country context that work very well.
That is really interesting, and thank you for that. It's so nice to see how different regions need to use different tools to communicate, and at the same time how you guys were like Brighton, how you guys also showed the government that we need to be engaged, we need to be taken seriously, and how then transformation happens. And it's not something that happens overnight, but it is building a relationship, and relationships in a way are key to how we move forward. And what you guys are doing today, I think it is because you showed them the creativity, the passion, and the ideas and the commitment, and then transformed it to actually having that relationship now. So it's great to hear these different examples and different tools that work so well in different parts of the globe. And I know, and as I was saying, one of the key things we are seeing is that relationships. And to have successful youth engagement, it does need to ensure that we need to have effective partnerships across generations. The Convention on Biological Diversity in that way is a very good example for successful intergenerational partnerships and how they should look like. So over a decade, they have been engaging young people and creating space for young people, ensuring that we are meaningfully, effectively engaged. At the same time, our voices and concerns are given the required space. And with this, they are also they have been a really great support for young people, where they listen to us and also have provided us the necessary resources that are needed for us to create all these amazing initiatives and truly inspirational work that you guys are talking about. They were there to give us that space and create those youth-led initiatives. And this has actually now helped mobilize millions of young people who want to do something for biodiversity. And I really attribute this to all the great work, great way in which the CBD does engage. So my question now to Chantal, who is the youth coordinator, youth focal point in the CBD, is to ask her, with such a great start, how do you see this moving forward? Especially, how do you see this maybe strengthening with at the national level, taking this forward at the national level and making what you guys do as a UN body, not an exception, but a norm? How do we make it translate?
Thank you, Sweta, and hello everyone. It's really a pleasure for me to join you on this round of questions. In fact, under the CBD, yes, youth participate actively in not only in decision-making processes, but in implementation. And I'm going to talk a bit more about what you were saying, Sweta, and you basically already said a little bit, use the angle that I wanted to use for this conversation, is that yes, youth are very engaged in decision-making processes. So they come to the meetings. They are considered credible and partners by CBD parties, and they're very well respected. The organizations that come to the meetings often agree to work very closely with the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, which makes it easier for them to speak as one voice, although they do have multiple voices, and that's very well recognized, but so that they can speak under the youth microphone and that they can use the youth meeting room. The coordination under the Global Youth Biodiversity Network was very key for parties also to have the face of the youth. This way they engage in all the meetings, the COP and the subsidiary body meetings, also in the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework process. And again, they are respected. But again, as Sweta said, to get that level of credibility, the GYBN had to demonstrate that they were credible partners, and that did not happen in the meeting rooms. That happened, in fact, in the implementation aspects, all the work that the Global Youth Biodiversity Network is doing on the ground, the capacity building workshops, and the linkages that the network is able to do with the local and national governments. Working on their national biodiversity strategies and action plans, that really brought attention of the governments, because they realized that youth were there to help them and to support implementation of their own commitments to the convention. So through all these activities, the guidebook, local campaigns, species campaigns, consultations, so youth have demonstrated that they're self-organized, coordinated, well-trained, and also, as you all mentioned, they're respectful of the process. And in exchange, over the years, they received increasing support for youth-led initiatives. They received in-kind and financial support at all levels. They developed partnerships, intergenerational partnerships, which is very important. And also, as David mentioned, also they were invited to come to the CBD meetings, the international meetings, but also the technical and regional meetings, which was key to kind of mainstream youth in the CBD programs. So for the CBD, what we're going to try and continue to do this and strengthen this as much as possible, because they're very important enabling conditions. And if we keep the analogy of the food, and when we are trying to think of how this could be replicated in other UN bodies, or how could this be a norm, in UN bodies, but also at the national level with governments. I don't think there is a recipe per se, that, or one size fits all, that, as other people mentioned also. I think it's, as you said, a matter of relationship. There are key ingredients, as I think it's Brighton who said that it's a two-way street, but it's a multilateral street, right? Where it's different groups of youth, different stakeholders, civil society, governments, who really engage in a respectful relationship, or where they can see that youth participate in implementation, participate in decision making, but in exchange, others have to be open and have this inclusive approach and dialogue with the youth and be ready to collaborate with them. So thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Chantal. And I love the way that you have taken it forward to continue to use our recipe narrative from the round one. It is something that we do see is critical, as you know, how all of you guys are talking about. And all of us are clearly echoing this, that it's the relationships, but at the same time, it is having that respect and ensuring that we give the space, and then work together. I think these are some key things that all of you are mentioning, and it's great to hear that we all kind of see a direction moving forward. I would now like to ask the one person that I think could imagine a global approach to this solution, to this thing, which is obviously Jetma, who's the UN Youth Envoy. You have really worked across the globe, and we would really love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on moving this concept of youth engagement beyond numbers to something more meaningful?
Thank you, Sweta. I think a lot of important things have been said, so I'll try to be very concise. I think, as Ron mentioned in the very first round, communication is one of the best tools that we have in terms of not only sort of educating and mobilizing young people, but to be able to effectively forge intergenerational partnerships in order for us to formulate better policies, but also, as Chantal said, implement and also make the accountability of those policies more effective and owned by young people and future generations as well. So the best way to communicate is not only to highlight the issues and the concerns of young people, but actually making sure that young people can speak for themselves. Brighton said earlier, nothing about us without us, and this has been the mantra of the youth movement for so long. And I think it's very important to ensure that the institutions are not talking on behalf of youth or about youth, but that they're talking with youth like equal partners. I know that, this has been said many times, but still, particularly as somebody who works with the United Nations, it's extremely difficult in these bureaucratic hierarchical institutions to make the point that, well, a young person can actually contribute at the same level as, say, a minister or some high-level representative, and that they both bring their unique expertise and they bring their unique experience into these conversations that can help shape us come up with inclusive solutions. So so the very important work that they're doing, the effort that they're putting into, and the commitment that they have. I think it's important as institutions and as those who hold power that we also are ready to sort of give our power back to the constituencies that we represent or the constituencies that we are working for. So one of the things that, for an example, I try to do often is to have young people take over the speaking opportunities that I get, or have young people take over the social media channels of myself or of the Secretary General. Sometimes we try to sort of get young people to directly use those channels of United Nations, which are credible channels, to voice their initiatives and to showcase their solutions, and to show that young people are not only complaining, but they're actually coming up with very concrete solutions to the issues that we are facing in the world right now. So we've done this in very ad hoc ways, I feel, the rest of the United Nations system. But as Chantal said, it's very important that sort of, even though we cannot find a one-size-fits-all model, it's important that we at least adhere to a common set of principles when it comes to engaging with young people, and that we respect their agency, we respect their leadership as equal partners. So 3 years ago, to make this change at a structural level, the Secretary General of the United Nations launched something called Youth 2030, which is the UN's first ever youth strategy. And now for 3 years, we've been rolling this strategy out at the country level. For those of you who are interested, please go and check out Youth 2030 online. There is not only a strategy, but there is an accountability mechanism. And we've currently gathered data from the 130 UN country offices to see if they're actually implementing this strategy, and if so, how meaningfully are they engaging with young people. And this data, including a report of a very critical self-evaluation of the UN system's engagement of young people, is going to be launched on the 7th of April. So please check the report out. It's going to be out in actually one day. It's going to be out tomorrow. And please use that as a tool to hold the United Nations accountable in your country, in your region, and at the global level for delivering on these commitments that we have made at a global level. So what we are trying to do through this strategy is to obviously advocate for expanded and meaningful participation in intergovernmental forum at the global and regional levels, but also create dialogue with youth and governments at the national level to encourage extensive and streamlined support to youth leaders, particularly financial support to youth organizations. Just like Brighton and Sweta, I co-founded a youth organization back home in my country when I was in university. And one of the biggest challenges for us was to really accessing funding, because no one's willing to give funding to a bunch of 18-year-olds, right? They're asking for all the grant applications and scholarship applications are asking for 10 years of experience and addresses and electricity bills proving that this is your organization's address. And we had none of that. And I know there are so many youth organizations doing important work at the grassroots level who are unable to access that funding. So how can we mobilize more funding to not to go into institutions like the UN or the big NGOs, but directly to youth groups working at the grassroots level? We are trying to assist all parts of the UN by providing guidance and technical support, because we often talk about how we need to develop young people's capacities in order to engage with the UN, but we fail to recognize that sometimes those of us who are working for institutions are always not ready to work with external stakeholders or adapt to the different power dynamics or be flexible to the different ways of working that young people choose to work in. So building internal capacities of the UN staff to also work with young people meaningfully is one of the key priorities. And lastly, to set standards and to advocate for governments to transform the way in which they engage with young people in local levels and in national levels, particularly by including young people in formal political processes. Because a lot of young people's activism happens outside of political processes. And I believe that there has to be a strong linkage between what happens outside of rooms with what happens inside of rooms as it pertains to decisions, if we are to make sure that that change is sustainable. So all in all, what we are encouraging everyone and trying to hold everyone accountable through the UN's framework and architecture is that we as an organization trying to tackle with sort of, being a 19th century organization trying to tackle 21st century issues, is that the UN is able to not only work for youth, but that it's actually able to work with youth in partnership.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chaitama. And I think it's really cool that, a lot of the young people in this panel, you struck a chord when you talked about how we're all asked electricity bills when we have to, apply for funding. We all kind of know what you're talking about there. And I do see that, what the initiatives that you guys are doing are really cool. And I really think that these could be a very good way that we can start changing the narrative, changing the dynamic that, we have right now with as young people with the world, and, bring things to the next stage. And definitely, we're all going to check out that report that you're talking about. And let's hope we can get that link in the chat as well, so that we can get all the young people here to go back to their countries and really hold their governments accountable. But one of the key things, I think, taking forward from what Jayatma was talking about, how she used communication tools at her disposal to make things happen and make these change in dynamics happen. I think we could we can look at this in the next at the next level. And for this, I would like to ask Adrian, you being from the business private sector, we know that business has always had like the pulse of how to do advertising in radio and television, and how to disseminate information and get people to do things. We wanted to ask you, in your view, what do you think could be some of these different modes of communication, either in the traditional media or in social media, that you think that we can use, where we can actually create long-term, meaningful and successful youth engagement of young people, where you give them the information, but also empower them? How can we use these media channels and communication tools out there to do that?
Well, to start, I'd like to start with a concrete example. You know, the Black Lives Matters movement. When it started, many brands wanted to show a position, show some support into this movement. And on social media, you could see many brands saying support Black Lives Matters. And what we got actually straight after was a hashtag saying pull up or shut up. Basically telling all the brands, why you saying support, but show yourself. And actually many of these brands, and to be honest, we were part of it, felt quite embarrassed because we were not perfect. And so the lesson we got from here, which is actually going back to what Brighton said about authenticity, is you have to be transparent. Transparency is key on social media. And actually it's okay not to be perfect. No one is perfect. But you have to show that you care. And you have to give proof of your actions. And that your actions are helping you as a brand to improve. And this is how you will build your credibility. To give a concrete example about what we did that worked quite well, it's in Southeast Asia. They had this campaign called BLT, Big Little Things, unlike the sandwich, which I quite like, by the way. Big Little Things was to promote recycling. Basically, they were telling everyone, come into our stores with any kind of cosmetic packaging, and we will recycle it for you. We will collect all the packaging and recycle. And basically, this campaign helped us also to explain why it's important. We show transparency. We showed what we are doing actually, because again, we're not perfect. We want to engage, and we are in the process to engage in circular economy. We have signed the Ellen MacArthur program, but we're not there yet. And we also tell them what's going on with the plastic that is not being recycled. How in Southeast Asia, and like in France, like in many countries in the world, it often lands up in landfill or in the ocean. And what's the repercussion? How does this affects the fish and what we eat, and who, what we become at the end, because we are what we eat. And we see that this was a really powerful way to engage with our community. Starting with a concrete action, showing transparency, showing that you care, and little by little, trying to do what you can to make things better.
Thank you. And yeah, those are some really cool initiatives that are out there. And I think like the private sector is trying to see how they can like show themselves, be transparent, and actually show the world that they are ready to, work with us to make that change happen and transform our world to live in harmony with nature in a way. So yeah, thank you for giving us that insight into that world out there. I think, thank you for that. And I would like to now turn to Ron. And here, now that we've heard from so many amazing people, and Ron, you being one of the last speakers right now, I thought it would be good to ask you how you think we could bring this back, how you think all that was being said today could be brought back to your work right now, and how you're already engaging young people, and how you think that could change. Specifically, maybe you could talk about what you see could support in removing the barriers that exist with youth engagement and employment today.
Okay, thank you. And can I just take an opportunity first to say thank you for a wonderful opportunity to participate in this panel and hear such articulate, experienced, and smart people talk about something that's so important to us all. And could I also do a shout out to some brilliant young Parks Canada employees who participated in organizing this and work in a lot of conservation programs. So shout out to Marie-Philippe, Isabella, Joe, Blake, Anna, and Elise, along with so many others who are on the line and people asking questions in the chat as well. What a privilege. So to your question, you know, one of the things I take away from this is the need to model good behavior, if I can put it that way. You know, there's very little value of engaging youth if we don't listen to them, and if we don't empower them and help them take on positions of responsibility and leadership to actually affect the kind of change that they are trying to bring and that we need them to bring. And so let me give a couple of examples of things that we do. First of all, one important area of work for Parks Canada and for all Canadians because of our history and our constitution, et cetera, is working with Indigenous groups towards reconciliation, towards making things better in healing the lost connections to the land from things that have happened in Canada in the past. And, you know, in terms of engaging Indigenous youth, we have on the land guardian programs. We have ways of integrating Indigenous knowledge into Western science, where elders and Indigenous youth can help bring forward and teach us their traditional ways and their Indigenous knowledge. And so that's one way we work in partnership with Indigenous groups for better conservation outcomes. In terms of enhancing and supporting youth engagement and removing barriers to youth employment, there's a couple of things we do, and they're quite important. One, the Government of Canada requires gender-based analysis plus on all of our programming and activities, et cetera, and the plus goes to all of those other equity-seeking groups. And so we really do try to put greater emphasis, including for youth, on hiring racialized people, persons with disabilities, minority groups, and making sure that they have the opportunity to take on positions of leadership within our organizations. We have about 5,000 full-time employees, and then in the summertime, we hire about 2,000 university students. And so we're getting that youth DNA baked into our activities all the time, and a lot of them end up joining us, some of which you have met already and that I've already named. We are also trying to make sure that when we do recruit youth, we keep them with us by earning and maintaining their trust. One, by giving them opportunities for growth and leadership and development, but two, on a more human scale, to make sure that the diversity that we have tried to recruit is respected and honored and acknowledged and given its proper voice in the organization. And so recently we have created the Parks Canada Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Council, which has champions for a variety of equity-seeking groups to give voice to their concerns and contributions within the agency, and to look at, through that lens, at how our programming for the public and for youth and for everyone is being applied more equally. And we think by doing that, we're going to get better outcomes, and we're going to get the youth in, we're going to keep them. And then the key is as well to actually give them meaningful work with real outcomes that make real contributions. And so we do that within the agency on a lot of our work, but also internationally. We're supporting Nature for All, that allows youth to take on leadership roles and make a difference. The World Conservation Congress and the lead up to that, the 5th International Marine Protected Areas Congress, Impact 5, which will happen in Vancouver next June, and some international climate change work that we're doing as well. We think by modeling good behavior of hiring them, giving them paid employment, and giving them a real voice at the table, that we will continue to grow that culture of conservation and allow them to play the leadership role that they can and want to play.
Thank you, Ron. And it's incredible the way you are ensuring that young people are given a seat at the table and can engage in effective decision making with you. And I really think what you guys have as a department for equity, inclusion, and diversity, the way you call it, is something that we all should think about as having in all our spaces, so that we always ensure that these are key elements that we take into account while doing our activities and projects. So thank you for sharing with us all those exciting work that Parks Canada is doing. I think now we are kind of coming to an end to our amazing panel and all the amazing things you guys have told us about. But because our panel and panelists and speakers have been so amazing to keep to time, we have a really nice chance here today to actually hear from all these amazing thousands of young people who have joined us. There are several of them who have given us questions, and they would like to ask you those questions. So I'm going to go over a few of them, and I could recommend any of you who are interested in answering it to maybe raise your hand, and then you can take the floor. Cool. Okay. So the first question we have for you guys is from Andrea from El Salvador. She asks, what mechanisms have been created so far for a real inclusive participation of youth in your institutions? Adrian?
We have started a few months ago something called, in French, Fresque du Climat. In English, it's a climate collage. It's a kind of it's a game, basically, an interactive game that you can play with everyone. And on in digital, you can now do it remotely. And basically, it's when you properly moderate it, it's an opportunity for one moderator, an expert, and maybe around 10 people to really discuss deeply about the consequences of our behavior in climate change. And I found it a great opportunity to actually, going back to inclusive, to listen to everyone's voice, the youth, but actually all generations. And it proven to be super successful, also to engage all the company behind this fight for climate change.
Great. Jatama, would you like to add to that?
Yes, maybe 3 examples of how through my work we've tried to do that. First one, and I think the most important one, is, as I said, the Secretary General has launched a youth strategy for the UN, and we've been very sort of conscious to include young people in the formulation and the implementation and the accountability part of the youth strategy. So the highest level body that is currently in the UN in evaluating the progress of the youth strategy is something called the High Level Steering Committee, and it's made up of high-level UN officials representing different UN agencies, funds, and programs that are responsible for the implementation of this strategy. And in this committee, we have dedicated 2 seats for representatives of coalitions of civil society organizations. So not individuals, but those young people who represent large groups of youth civil society networks to sit in this steering committee and have an equal decision-making power as the UN representative. So this is considered to be one of the first bodies in the UN that has direct civil society participation in terms of internal decision making. And we are very happy that we could do this in the youth space itself. The second one is the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. We have a group of young people advising the UN Secretary General directly on the implementation of his climate strategy. They meet with the Secretary General every quarter and with the Deputy Secretary General every quarter and with myself and the Assistant Secretary General for Climate Action every month. And they give us feedback, very raw, honest feedback as to the progress or lack of progress that the UN is making in terms of translating some of our responsibilities or commitments into action. And this has also been a really great way for us to engage directly with young people across a wide variety of issues that come under climate action. The third one is a different modality, so it's not necessarily through representation, making their voices heard through representation, but a platform that we launched called Reach Not Preach, which is an online platform where we actually proactively reach out to youth organizations working on issues like climate action, environmental conservation, those who are not always a part of UN processes. So for an example, those who might not be part of the intergovernmental processes as self-organized youth constituencies, but those who are doing their activism and doing their work outside of that space, but pretty much contributing to that same goal. So we are trying to reach out to them proactively and get them to take over the Reach Not Preach platform for a month. And we ask them to publish their opinion. We ask them to talk about their issues and build networks with other organizations in this space. And even though it's a UN convened platform, we do not filter or we do not edit what they write. So this is created as a safe space where they can actually express their unfiltered opinion, which sometimes also targets constructive criticism towards their own governments when it comes to implementing climate commitments. So there's many more, but I thought these three are maybe the most interesting ones for this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they were quite interesting. Brighton, would you like to answer this question? Because there are quite a few more questions that our speakers, our amazing participants have sent us. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. Cool. So let me go to the next one, which is for IUCN. I think the next could be definitely what you could answer, Brighton, as well. We have a question directed to IUCN from Fidel Assemble. I'm sorry for the pronunciation of your name, but we have somebody from Cameroon who's asking, how will IUCN ensure that youth are actively impacting their communities after programs? I'm guessing he's talking about conservation programs.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understand quite well the question, but let me give it a shot. IUCN carried out last year a review of IUCN's engagement with youth. It was a big review that was carried out to seek how IUCN is engaging or not engaging sufficiently youth in its work. And so that review was translated into a report that is now being assessed. What do we do in response to that? What came out of that? Part of the results that came out of that review were hinting precisely at what I think the question was alluding to, is how do we actually engage more in the conservation action work rather than only let's say at the headquarters level or at the programmatic level, but more at the field work. What we can do with youth in partnership with youth and for youth as a conservation organization like we are. And here I think that it starts with small steps, but I would imagine that in the right direction, and we all hope that it's in the right direction. And it's with being more how do you say that in English? À l'écoute, to listening in a listening mode to what youth activists and practitioners are saying in the field. And when we engage them in projects, implementation, and all the rest of it. And we have a very important arm in our program, in our programs on the ground. Our project teams, our regional office have a direct contact with our members. Most of them engage youth in one way or another. And so it's one part is listening to what they're saying, how they want to be engaged. And another part is putting the right structures in place, being it at the secretariat level, being it in conjunction with our commissions, at the research and more knowledge level, and also, of course, with our members when we implement projects together with them. So I think that it's important there just to have a perspective of what is being said, what is being compiled, what is the feedback that we get, and how can we improve structurally how we respond to those requests from youth to be better integrated, more listened to, and responded to in the way that IUCN engages with youth.
Yeah, I mean, being reflective is something that is a really cool thing, and it is really important. So it's great to see that IUCN is doing that. So for the next question, we have Salima, and she's from Canada, and I think this could be something, Brighton, you could answer for us. She's asking us, how do we ensure that wide, diverse young people aren't diluted in engagement of meaningful outcomes?
Sorry, would you mind just repeating the question?
Sure. Yeah, so the question is, how do we ensure that the wide, diverse young voices aren't diluted in engagement for meaningful outcomes?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, and it reminds me of how relevant it is to, first of all, become aware of the fact that there's diversity. I think this is something Jayathma spoke about earlier, about recognizing the fact that there won't be any size-fits-all solution in terms of engaging young people. But also, most importantly, I feel situational awareness is what becomes critical to prevent that dilution of the diversity of young people. Being aware from the outset that we need to meet the needs of different diverse people and engaging them becomes the first step. Without that presence of awareness, then we discover that there won't be any existence of diversity in terms of engagement. But I think also the open-mindedness to accommodate the different needs, desires and aspirations of young people coming from diverse backgrounds is what becomes even more critical, because without having the open-mindedness that young people are coming from backgrounds, belief systems, principles and values that are different, then engaging them in their own uniqueness becomes another hurdle. So I think it's the situational awareness, the systems awareness, and the emotional intelligence needed in institutions to engage young people coming from diverse backgrounds, but also the diverseness in their very existence as young people. So I'll point to those two key ingredients: institutional and systems awareness, and situational awareness, and the open-mindedness to accommodate young people in their own uniqueness.
Thank you. I'm going to the next question now, and this is from Siru from Fiji, and they're asking us, they're asking, given our current situation with COVID, the ongoing global climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis, what are we seeing and experiencing? What we are already seeing and experiencing, what are some of the practical strategies to ensure that investment on youth initiatives and capacities is not scaled back? And I think this is really critically hitting on the building back better concept and how we should ensure that they don't scale back youth initiatives, given the current pandemic we are in. I think any of you who's interested could answer this. Okay, Sonia?
It's a very topical question, and I completely agree and feel forcibly that we have to do something not to have a step back in many senses, not only in terms of youth engagement or integration into everything that we do in society, but rather also managing how those impacts of COVID will impact in turn are the way that we consume, that we recover from this pandemic as a society, as economies worldwide. I am currently managing an IUCN initiative that is precisely looking at nature. It's called nature-based recovery, and it's looking at advocating for investments in nature and nature-based solutions up to at least 10% of the overall, investment in recovery packages. And I think that there, just by looking at the figures, you can see that impacts on youth have been humongous of this pandemic in terms of unemployment, mental health, access to education, access to opportunities altogether. So if we want to build back better or forward better in a way that takes into consideration nature as at its heart and invest in nature, we have to precisely invest also in the future and in youth, and have you all have a say in how those recovery plans are constructed, are deployed, how our governments are taking those decisions. I mentioned at the beginning that decision making and being including in those decision making processes is key. And in this particular setting, being part of the conversation moving forward and saying what is it that youth is ultimately not giving up on is essential. And I think that is where IUCN or other organizations like all of us out there can support that launching pad for saying youth are not compromising on education, we are not compromising on our health, on our opportunities, on jobs being created for us and given for us. So keep on knocking on the doors. Don't give up, and keep screaming as loudly as you can and using every opportunity, because there are people that are hearing out there and being able to provide you with those entry points. And I like to think that as part of that initiative that I just mentioned, we're also taking that youth dimension in investing in nature means also investing, of course, in the future of our world and in the young generations.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Jetma, would you like to respond as well?
Quickly add into what Sonia said, and thank you, Seru, for that question. And I was, in retrospect, thinking maybe I should have spoke more about the impacts of COVID-19 on young people in my early interventions. You asked for strategies, and I can think of two. And the first one definitely is the need to emphasize the adverse and disproportionate impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on young people. During the early days of the pandemic, there was this rhetoric, or rather narrative, that young people are immune to the virus, and that they're not the most vulnerable group. And of course, older people are more vulnerable. People with pre-existing conditions are more vulnerable to the health impacts of the pandemic. But young people are disproportionately vulnerable for the socioeconomic impacts of the pandemic. If you take, for an example, the millennial generation, when they graduated from schools and universities, they had to face the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. And now, as they're coming out of that economic shock, they're facing a second wave, or
Jetma, did you lose your internet connection? Yeah, it might be that she lost her internet connection and she's going to get it back in a minute. So then I think the best way for us is to move forward. We're close to wrapping up our session now, and I think Brighton, you would like to add on to what Jetma was saying, and maybe with that, if any of you would like to answer something that she had also mentioned earlier, which was about creating the safe spaces for young people. I think this is a growing concern that young people have right now, is how do we raise our voices without fearing for our life. And this is something which is we are trying to constantly talk about wherever we can. And I think it's very apt that a panel like this could even shed a little bit of light on that. So Brighton, maybe you could answer these two things just so that we can also explain to the young people here that, how can they be safe while they want to do what they want to do for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about creating alliances. I always keep emphasizing the fact that to be able to create impact at scale as young people, when we look at examples of the past from Fridays for the Future and many other anecdotes we can pick, it has been born out of strong alliances with fellow peers and supporters that believe in the values and aspirations of whatever we're doing as young people. And I believe irrespective of where you are, you might be in Bangladesh, you might be in Malawi, you might be in South Africa, Kenya, you might be in the Caribbean, wherever you are, there are always individuals that align into your own values and aspirations and plans. So I think it's about creating strong alliances, bolstering alliances with those in your constituency to galvanize the needed supports to ensure that we create a safety net. But also it's relevant for institutions to create spaces where young people don't feel stigmatized, discriminated against, or sidelined for whatever reasons. So institutions also have a critical role to play. And as young people on the other side can galvanize alliances and build a strong movement. It's like building strong linchpins, with other organizations and other individuals in our constituencies that can help us galvanize the needed chains that can't be broken by any injustice or any other systems that have been created and are deeply entrenched in institutions. So number one, we need as young people to mobilize ourselves. We have the numbers, we have the technology savviness, we have the creativity, and these are not just mere words. These are things that we have, and we are already showing examples of how we are using this to our advantage. But also institutions need to create spaces where young people feel welcomed, where young people feel accommodated, and where young people feel like they are a part of the process and not just, by the way, people that are called to attend events and attend meetings. That won't bring about the engagements that we need.
Yeah, but with that really awesome punchline ending that you have got the amazing conversation today to an end, Brighton. And thank you for all the amazing panelists who've come together today for this really enriching conversation. There couldn't have been a more amazing start to the IUCN's Global Youth Summit than you guys, steering the way and showing us a way towards successful youth engagement. We've learned so much today with all of you, from the values that are needed to be respected, to what we need to reflect about, what we need to take care, and what are some of the cool initiatives that are out there that, all these young people who are steaming in the chat and talking and booming with excitement could start engaging in. So thank you for each and every one of you who's made today's first intergenerational dialogue such an amazing, enriching experience for all of us. But let's not stop here. Let's make this Global Youth Summit all that it needs to be. This summit has such amazing content for all of you. And, to tell you that 1,300 of you are interested in being here means something. But I do have one personal message that I would like to share with everyone out there now. It's to say that from all that we've heard today, we also know, from what conversations I've been having with my peers, it is kind of clear that we all realize that we are inheriting a world that is damaged, and we feel responsible for it, but we also feel the burden of it. But while we feel this burden weighing on us, I think we should start realizing that we have a right for our future, and we have a right to fight for it. We need to start realizing that there is no better moment than right now in history where young people have the power. We have the stage, and we need to show the world that we can push, and we need to move with the world and push them to create that fundamental transformative change that we need for our future. And I want us, all of us here, to take this huge opportunity in this summit to come together for the next 10 days and, interact with each other, take this opportunity to work with each other and really make this happen together. And, that's where I would like to hope all of you guys have an amazing time in the summit. Invite all of you to definitely speak and participate in the hashtag Youth Speak Labs that are happening, share your experiences, and hopefully together we have the power. So let's make what the changes that are needed to create the world that we need to live in harmony with nature. Thank you to all of you. And I really hope from the bottom of my heart, I would love to wave back to all our panelists to say thank you. And I hope you enjoyed the summit with all of us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tueta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that was Sweta. Thank you so much. That was such a wonderful panel. I'm AY. I'm back here just to take this out. What an amazing group of people. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. I'm honored and super thankful for the invite opening up the summit today. So just a huge special thanks to IUCN for making this happen. I think it's safe to say that at this point, we are all change makers now. So let's make sure we plug into this summit all week long to equip ourselves to make concrete actions and change the world around us. So this is just the beginning, everyone. We have these next 10 days to truly move the needle. I believe in us, in all of us. So please check the chat box to see how you can stay up to date on all the programming and keep an eye out on all of our social media handles for the latest from the summit. There's an awesome group hashtag, and we've got really responsive people in the chat box to keep everyone plugged in to making change all through the week. I want to hear from all of you. So shout out your favorite part of the opening on social media now. Make sure you tag us. Tell us what's inspired you. That was such an awesome panel. A shout out to Jay, the youth envoy. Thank you again for making me a young leader. Just comment about some of these things that you guys are seeing. Tell us what you're most excited about. Let's go.